If you're interested in learning how I launched Zim Excellence, then you're in luck. Sign up for my podcast workshop and learn how it's easier and more affordable than ever to start a podcast. Also, grab yourself a copy of my podcast resource guide, which covers industry terminology, suggested tech setup, in addition to countless free online resources to support your podcast journey. Just head to wongai.com/podcast creation. That's wongai.com/podcast creation. The link will also be down in the show notes. Now, let's start the show. Yo! Welcome to the party! Hello, Makadini Salibonani. My name is Wongai, and you're listening to Zim Excellence, a weekly celebration of Zimbabwe's changemakers and trailblazers. So here's the secret, y'all. Zimbabweans are actually dope AF, and it's just time that we recognize it. So grab yourself a plate of sadza and grab that stony ginger beer, and let the party begin. Welcome to another episode of Zim Excellence. Today, my guest has dedicated his professional life to the business of music and entertainment. He is currently employed as A&R Manager Africa for Sony ATV Music Publishing South Africa. With over 10 years experience in the music and entertainment space, in the sourcing, licensing, curation, creation, monetization, and distribution of audio and visual content, he has decided to launch his own online education music platform called Masters of the Industry, M.O.T.I, Africa. He has extensive experience across the continent due to directly engaging with mobile and online platforms, independent record labels, artists, and publishers. Please welcome Munya Chanetsa. And the crowd applauds.
Oh, no, thank you, Wongai, for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. Like, I literally love your energy, and I anticipate that we're all gonna learn a lot today, and I'm so looking forward to this conversation.
If that happens, then mission accomplished. It'll be a good session then.
Stuff. Before we get into all the amazing things that you've been up to, I always like to talk origin story. Okay. So you are a Zim Excellence superhero. I'm a nerd. So you are a Zim Excellence superhero.
We try.
And every superhero has their origin story. So I'd love if you could share a bit about your origin story to help us understand how you got from point A to point B, because you currently live in South Africa, but you were born in Zimbabwe.
Correct. Yes, and yes. So so you mean my origin, not just my career origin story, just as in my life origin story?
Yeah, like that moment when you picked up that A Tribe Called Quest tape and you were like, yeah, this is it. When you were like 5, I don't know. I'm making up origin stories, but you take it away.
Okay, cool. So born in Zimbabwe. My parents are Mr. and Mrs. Chanetsa. So at the time, my father was a deputy ambassador for Zimbabwe. So at the time, the family was in England, UK, but my mother had flown down to have me in Zim, keeping it real. So I think shortly after being born, we joined. And so that's where I spent, I guess, the early years of my life in UK. And,
Same.
Oh yeah? Uh-oh.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it. I mean, as a child, I know my mother described me as someone who was very quiet and chilled. But she said one of the things she did notice about me is that all I needed was TV, and I was okay. Like, I was one of those children where you put me in front of the TV and then I'd just be quiet. And Sesame Street, funny enough, was one of my favorite shows. And this is all true story, by the way. So yeah, she used to tell me that, like Sesame Street just did it for me. And I remember actually, what I do recall is that I learned a lot. I remember learning a lot through music, through Sesame Street, if that makes sense. Like, a lot of these songs, like, even till today, they're like programmed in my head.
That makes a lot of sense because actually, like, aside from my mom, like, Sesame Street taught me how to read. Like, I'm sure I would say this to people and they'd be like, no, that's not true. You learned to read at school. I'm like, no, my mom was there and it was Sesame Street.
Trust and believe.
Yeah.
It was Sesame Street. So yeah, I think I've always had an appreciation for music. Music's helped me learn a lot of things. There's a couple of I remember even when learning multiplication, my parents bought there was this rap music cassette tape, and that's how I remember learning multiplication pretty easy.
I love that I made up the origin story about a cassette tape, and there was a cassette tape. How did I
there
know?
was
Intuition.
a cassette. You knew
Intuition.
It. You could see it. So, I mean, I've always been a lover of music. I remember so we also did fly up and down quite a bit. So from Zim, from UK, I think we spent maybe a year in Russia randomly, and then we went to Zimbabwe for 1 year, and then we found ourselves back in UK for another 5 years or so. So I only came back to Zim properly when I was I must have been 12. That was in 1995. Yeah. Or maybe 11, sorry. 11. I was 11, I think. So that's when we returned back to Zim. So that's when now Zim, that's when I spent my high school. I went to St. John's College. And I mean, again, music has always been a part. I remember being part of plays. There was one which is a huge bomb when we tried to do a cover of, I think it was Casey and Jojo. That didn't go well. We were trying to sing All My Life. But I mean, I remember in choir, I remember having a lead role as in the Christmas play as a donkey and having to sing. And so, I mean, I've always enjoyed entertainment and music. When Haifa was going down, I think at an early time, I used to volunteer to be part of it. And I remember at some point, fortunately I had friends and I got hooked up, and it's like, I would then eventually at one point, I remember being stage manager at one point, and I've always enjoyed creativity, so yeah, that's pretty much how, I guess, in terms of not career wise, things started. But I've always known I've loved music, always wanted to be around music. I was king of karaoke when I was at university in Australia.
Yes.
People must know. I used to destroy things.
Let them know.
It was ridiculous, but it was a good time. You and I
should be on the same karaoke team, undefeated. We'll be undefeated.
Oh, they don't know what will happen.
Oh, that is just so dope.
Yeah, so that's just in terms of my origin story, I guess, and how music has played a role throughout.
What does being Zimbabwean mean to you? How would you define that personally?
Zim is home, and being Zimbabwean, I've always, in terms of our people and being Zimbabwean, I've always felt that our people are we're actually just a genuinely beautiful people. And I mean, with the exception to all the other chaos that does happen. But I think genuinely as Zimbabweans, we are such a beautiful, genuine, loving, helping type people, So that's what I just associate with Zimbabwe. That's, I guess, why I try and be the kind of person that I am in terms of, how I conduct myself. Proudly Zimbabwean. Even though the truth of the matter is I'm half South African. My mom is South African. So, I mean, I am in both sides. But, I mean, I guess because I really did grow up in Zim, and I only came to South Africa when I was an adult already and stuff. But, being Zimbabwean is just, being just, I don't know what to say, being just good. Being great,
I can't remember if I mentioned this to you, but I was born in Harare and then moved to London when I was a baby, and then moved back to Zimbabwe when I was around 8, and then moved to Beijing around 13, spent all of my teens in Beijing, but mind you, I am still a teenager, and then went
Look at you.
Look at me, and then went to back to London, Brunel University, and studied film and television studies, then moved back to Zimbabwe 6 months, and then moved to New York. So, I feel you. We are both third culture kids. We in the same tribe.
Same WhatsApp group. Yes, we are.
Yes.
Together. So, you get it. You get it.
So, Mr. A&R.
Yeah.
So for those of the listeners that didn't obsessively watch Empire, can you tell us what an A&R manager does? That's how I learned about A&R, because someone was like, yeah, sense. The A&R, it was an Empire.
I think I did see it, yeah. But I did see that episode. That's very funny. So A&R stands for Artist and Repertoire. Mm-hmm. And so basically, and there's A&R, there's a different context to A&R depending on where you are at in the industry. So there's A&R for music record labels, and their job is to, number one, find like new artists, new performing artists. They're looking for people who are going to be, as I said, performing artists in front of the mic, singing songs, performing songs. And that's their job, you know. Whereas now on the publishing side where I am, A&R, it means the same thing. The only difference is that I'm not looking for performing artists. I'm looking for songwriters and producers. That's what I'm trying to find, who are the hottest songwriters and producers on the continent. And technically, do three things for them: is make sure their works are protected, make sure they get their royalties. And the third thing is, which is my job, which is then to get them more work, like to use your skill as a songwriter or as a producer to create music for other artists, and it's not necessarily always commercial songs. And when I say commercial songs, I mean songs you hear on radio and stuff. It could be just background music. It could be what they call bed music. So like just to make sure that, so as a producer, so you don't have commercial songs, but maybe you can do a soundtrack and have music in the background, whether it's for an ad or film or TV. So that's kind of that's what an A&R does on my side. So yeah, it's really just, and also in the same breath, it's also looking at how do we work the current repertoire that we have at Sony Music Publishing. So just to see like how else can we just, fully maximize and exploit the works actually to the maximum and generate as much money as possible for the creative.
That's dope. Do you ever get like unsolicited messages, emails, or letters, DMs being like, yo, Munya, put me on?
Do I?
I mean, I bet you do.
Yeah, no, I do. That's why it was so crazy. I remember after the announcement, like my phone.
About Sony.
About Sony, about joining Sony.
You made it. Bring me with you.
I remember just my phone. I remember saying that my phone was so slow and I didn't understand what was happening. And it just made sense that what happened was then people would I was getting like full on albums were just being sent to my phone and songs. And so my phone ended up being full. And then that's when now I switch off automatic downloads because people still do just send music and it fills up my phone. And then now my phone is slow and not working properly. So that was the first lesson I learned. But yeah. And
that's frightening, right? Because like, let's say you accidentally get that album, but maybe you didn't listen to it. And then along the lines, because, ideas don't belong to people. They just kind of, I got this from Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. They kind of float in the air. And then if you don't act on them, then someone else does. And that's why sometimes you have the same version of like the same movie that was like made at the same time. And you're like, wait, how was this possible? But
they're not even connected.
Yeah. And so like you'd hate for then, let's say, you have the albums that were sent to you that you didn't listen to, and then another artist from Sony comes out with this and somehow you're linked to it and they're like, oh, Munya stole my tracks, but you never did.
Which actually, I've never thought of that. I'll be very honest, I've never thought of that. But I tend to, not to try, Actually, I've never thought of that as someone who would try a stunt like that.
I know it's a big thing in film and TV, where you'll then, like, people will send unsolicited show Bibles. And like, there have been issues where like, for real, people's shows were stolen because like, maybe they were told, oh, this isn't the right show for us. And then they go on to make a show that's basically similar to the show that was mentioned. But there have also been scenarios where like, coincidentally, it was like, this is similar, but like they never looked at it. And so I'll hear that like producers and different agents and execs, as soon as they get those emails, they have to delete them. And even Lavia Jai the other day was talking about people will send her manuscripts for their book as if she's a publisher. And then she's like, she had to make a post on Instagram and be like, please not do this.
Don't do that.
Because some people will pull some things and I want you to stay protected. Yeah. Like go right through the correct channels.
Go through the correct channels, correct. But yeah, that's what I definitely don't accept anything anymore on my phone unless I actually don't even accept downloaded music. A lot of people just like, you know how people send music they just like, hey, this is my favorite song. And they'll send a song. I don't even download that now. Like I try and, that's why I always say that, I think the reason why I've been growing in the industry is because I genuinely love music and I respect music. And so I'm happy to pay for music now. I know at one point in my life I did used to do that shit, but I've long stopped that. And for years, I'm happy just to pay. I'd rather pay 60 Rand for the Spotify, pay all these things. And I do it across the board, even with regards to movies now as well. Cause I'm just like, you know what? If one day I'm going to expect people to want to pay for anything that I put out in this industry, then I can't be doing this. This is hypocrisy.
Today is a great day to start your own podcast. Whether you have a message you want to share with the world or you think, ooh, it could be fun to have my own talk show like one guy, getting started is easier than ever. Here at Zim Excellence, we use Buzzsprout, which is hands down the easiest, most affordable, and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Start for free and list your show on directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more within minutes. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping and teaching you to succeed. Just check out their YouTube videos. They are filled with tons of information. So join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Sign up today using the link in the show notes or go to wongai.com/podcast creation and you'll get a $20 credit if you sign up for a paid plan. It also helps support the show. So go ahead, sign up for Buzzsprout and keep me posted on your new podcast. Now back to the show. Yeah, it's a lot of work that goes into this like content creation and this like creation of art. It's just so heartbreaking. So much. But like you said, full disclosure, we all had those LimeWire days, like early 2000s, before we understood the implications of what we were doing. Yes, we have repented.
Yes, amen, amen, and amen.
Okay, so let's dive right into M.O.T.I. So, M.O.T.I, I believe what you're doing is absolutely inspiring, yet necessary. What's really interesting is, so a while ago, I watched this FB, like a Facebook live video from this acting coach where she was talking about like the frustration of working with actors, because even if actors have graduated from, let's say, an elite or an upper echelon acting conservatory, or actors who never studied at all, there's still a lack from these programs because they don't have enough business classes to educate actors and artists on ways to sustain their careers and also to prevent them from being scammed or getting the short end of the stick. And so with all of that said, I would love for you to introduce and define for our listeners what the purpose and ethos of M.O.T.I Africa is.
All
Take
right.
it away, Mr.
So,
Lecturer.
This is my baby. So, M.O.T.I stands for Masters of the Industry. And as you correctly... And so hashtag M.O.T.I.
We stand.
Yep. So, as you shared, like, I think it's just something which is just systemic within the entertainment industry as a whole, where for some reason there seems to be just information gaps, where for some reason we're unable to, I always say like the academics, let me say the business side, people on the business side, for some reason we're unable to articulate things properly to the creative side. And that creates this divide. And then I guess that's when now just mistakes continually happen, on and on. And it's sad. And and I guess M.O.T.I, if I'm being very honest with you, it was born out of frustration more than anything, because I think I realized at some point, I was like, the problem is, well, actually a couple of things happened to make me get to that point where I am now. But I mean, at one point, I remember just thinking when I joined a company called CAPASO, which is the Composers, Authors and Songwriters Association, I realized that there's this whole area of the industry I really don't know much about. Like, I was just like, and this is me, like 10 years in the game already. And I just realized there's this whole area around copyright. And I really have no clue what this all means. And that's when I was like, so for me, if I've been in the industry for 10 years and I feel I was at that point, I used to like even puff my chest and think, yeah, I knew things. I realized that I had no idea. Then I thought, so if me, Munyaradzi Chanetsa, has been in the industry for 10 years, has no idea about this area, what chance does someone who wants to just enter the industry have in this game? So, I mean, I think, so that's where things started just coming together. And I think then I started realizing how, because of the lack of understanding and things being done properly, it just affects the industry as a whole. Because, I was even saying, in certain countries, the entertainment and music industry also contributes to the GDP of countries.
Yeah.
It's an industry. However, we're struggling to really put that together. We can't value the industry because certain things aren't being done properly. So there's so many just things which we need to figure out and put in place so that we can really like work within the industry. And then, and all people who are within the industry are then, how do I say it? We all make more money. And then there's more money to go around, and there's actually a lot of money to go around within this industry. However, like I always just think about the fact that metadata, which is just song information, that isn't being done correctly till today. So now what happens is, if the metadata is not correct, and metadata, as I said, is song information, then now when there's royalties to be collected, what happens then? Because now where does things go? No one really understands. Now, and I think in Africa, there's also, I mean, the songwriters and the producers are really the forgotten creators. And I mean, and yet they are the core of what music is. Without songwriters and producers, I don't see what music we're making. But they really are the forgotten creators. There's so many things that I think as songwriters and producers, they don't know the revenue opportunities or the revenue streams that are actually available to them for just doing what they're already doing. However, just because they don't know, then they're unable to act and do the correct things. They don't know what the reason why they need to register with the CMO. They don't know what a publisher's purpose is. Because I mean, as I said, I work for Sony Music Publishing, which is very different from Sony Music Entertainment, which is the record label side. But I mean, people still hit me up and they're like, yo, as a performing artist, yo, Munya, hook me up. I need to get a record deal. Put me on. I need a record deal. Can you do AB? And I'm always like, guys, this is not what a publishing entity does. So I can't help you with that. I can put you in touch with the A&R team, that side, but that's as much as I can do. It's a different company. I have no influence there. And yeah, as much as I can do is just do a through ball. If it works for you, I'm happy. If not, it is what it is. But yeah, so I think, so now going back, so I just wanted to give more context as to how this started. So master of the industry. So I've always seen myself as just a man of the industry. So that's where it started initially, as man of the industry, M.O.T.I. And I was just a guy where, at any level, if you needed assistance, I'm happy to give you time and try advise you so you do the right things. So, and I used to call myself M.O.T.I, man of the industry, and that's how it started. But I guess as time, that's when I saw how serious this actually was. And I knew it was just bigger than just being man. So that's when I was like, we need to educate. And just as there is masters within education, I was like, we should have people who aspire to be masters of this industry, people who understand it to the point where they're like, yes, I'm a doctor and whatever. but
I have a doctorate in hip hop. Yes.
Tell them, yes. But so what I've done is I decided to create an online educational platform focusing on music. And right now it's www.motiafrica.com. And basically it's in video format, because I always say that I know creators don't like to read. That's often a problem. So it's in video format. And I believe that, because of my experience, and I don't think I'm the smartest person in the room. I've never thought I'm the smartest person in the room. Being funny is kind of my thing. I've always been the funny guy.
Oh, same.
So I don't.
That's why we tried.
That's why. You see, it's happening.
I feel like we're the people who we connect. We're connectors, so we know how to find the right people.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. We are connectors. Absolutely. I remember it's connectors. I remember reading, is that Outliers? Outliers.
I still haven't read that. My dad has read all the Malcolm Gladwell.
Oh yeah, he's a beast. Yeah. He's one of my favorite writers. I think he does talk about connectors, and I think it is an outliers, however you say it. But anyway, so yeah, I'd never claimed to be the smartest person. So, but I've realized also, I think that the narrative that's been given by the industry is that this stuff is really complicated and hard to understand, and I'm just like, if just average Joe Munya can understand this, then honestly we all can, because as I said, I'm not the smart person like that. But it just makes sense to me. It's just because I listened and I just connected the dots. So basically, with M.O.T.I, so M.O.T.I Africa is going to be a platform that, number one, is to give narrative to the industry, because I think one of the issues is that there's different things. So locally in South Africa, there are collection management organizations. And most of the time, most people just go and sign up with one of them, which is SAMRO, because that's the one most people hear about. And they don't realize that there's 4 other CMOs. And of the 5, actually, you only need to sign with 4. But the reason why there's 5 is because 2 of them do the same thing. But technically you need to, depending on whether you're a songwriter or producer, or if you're a performing artist, or if you're both, you need to sign with these CMOs. And there's no narrative that says once you sign with SAMRO, you also need to sign with Capasso, and you need to sign with Sampra, and you need to sign with Risa or Echo. It's like, there's no narrative. And so the idea is to not only provide a narrative like that, but also explain so that you understand the importance. So, as I said, I'm doing it in video format. So there's going to be videos just explaining just simple things. The idea is then to just keep putting out this type of content. And so the way I'm doing it is I'm looking at having what we call a free model, which is going to be just information you should know. As in, it's not something which you actually should even be paying for. It's like, the information is actually all out there already, but you just don't know any better at this moment in time. Therefore, I'll give you the narrative so you know what you need to do. So there's going to be a freemium model, as well as also, I'm also working on what we call, because I'm also trying to provide resource to people who come to the website. And I'm looking at creating what we call a digital split sheet, as well as a digital metadata form, which also talk to one another. But I think one of the things which is a problem is that we don't really recognize the importance of these 2 documents in our industry. And perhaps I think maybe because it's still quite cumbersome, maybe because for a split sheet, you have to print it out and you have to go down. And so I thought maybe let me create with my team. Let's create a digital version, which you can easily just do on your phone or do on your laptop there and then in studio. And then, it's done. At least you've done that. Everyone has agreed. You know what I mean? So there's that kind of thing. And the same with the metadata form, just to have all the information, and they're going to talk to each other, because the splits that you put in the digital split sheet, you're going to have to put them inside the metadata form. So at least everything is just getting done there and then. And, ultimately for my dream is that, with regards to M.O.T.I is actually a movement, because as I said, for me, it bore out of frustration, and I'm just tired of being in an industry which I know has such great potential, and we're not seeing the potential of it, and it's only because we don't know any better. So ultimately, it's like, I also respect that the creators are out there, and I'm like, cool, let the creators keep doing what they're doing. However, we need just a new set of people actually do need to stand up and say, listen, I want to be in the music industry. However, I don't want to be on the creative side. I would rather be on the business side. So what are the opportunities on this side of the business? What are the things that you can do? How can you earn money? You know what I mean? Like I ultimately want to groom and have like a new breed of people who are just doing that. And then where we are dedicating to protect the creators, to do right by the creators, to negotiate this, like the correct kind of deals, and not letting and maybe we should be the ones responsible for making sure, yes, let the creators have fun in the studio. They create their stuff. They're super excited. And you're the one who has to kind of set the tone and say, guys, before we all leave, can we just sort out the splits real quick? Do we agree that we just need someone in that room now? And that's who I hope to be, M.O.T.I. I want them to be M.O.T.I. So M.O.T.I is about owning it as well. So that's the whole vibe not in a nutshell. I actually went pretty detailed.
Well, I love that so much. You're creating a pathway forward for those, music and entertainment lovers who want to be part of the industry, but not necessarily want to be in the creation, like the creative who's like in the booth doing the stuff and all of that. The people who want to be of support and on the team, basically, which I think is awesome. I went to the M.O.T.I website and I checked out the video, and I also checked out the other videos on the YouTube, and y'all, they are crisp. I thought I was watching a trailer for Masterclass. I was like, yo,
that's what we're talking about.
Beautiful. Okay.
The standard of quality. People must recognize we can do the things if we need to on this continent.
This is Zim excellence. You don't have to half-ass it.
Come on.
So I was just like, wow, I'm not even in the music industry, but let me get my notepad
Come on.
and learn, because Professor Munya did not come to play.
No. Here we're not here to play at all.
I love that so much. So aside from heading to the website, and people can put in their email so that they can get news about the launch, which is going to be August, right?
So it was scheduled to be August, but now something recently came up because, one of the things with M.O.T.I for me is accessibility is very important, because I want everyone to be able to have access to this. And I mean, so there is, as I said, there's the freemium part, which will be information which is out there. However, there will be more premium content, which I would want people to subscribe to and pay for. And the premium content is going to be, it's going to be M.O.T.I masterclasses. So it's going to be full on M.O.T.I masterclasses, which are one-on-one engagement with industry experts now, where as much as I understand the importance of branding and I can kind of guide you through it. However, I'd rather you speak with an industry expert who's actually done it for a creative, and let's gauge with them and make that kind of happen. So there's going to be what we call M.O.T.I masterclasses. There's a few more other just M.O.T.I lessons, which I'll also be putting out, which will also, as I said, will have a resource so that you can actually answer the questions for yourself, and you build your own little plan as you're going along, becoming a M.O.T.I. But yes, it's accessibility I was sharing. And I recently engaged one of the mobile network operators because I want to see how we can do it in such a way so that people can pay using airtime. And then also make it a lot, what do you call it? Just more, just cheaper. Let me not try and make it cheaper so that instead of it trying to do this like Spotify or Apple, it's like 60 Rand a month. Like, I want to explore saying like, let's explore if we can do it as like rather for 5 Rand, it gives you access to 2 hours worth, and you can just access as much as possible, so I'm currently so because of these negotiations which have started, I may have to push back the start date again. But we'll see.
It's all for a good reason.
It's all for a good reason. I'm just trying to help y'all out, y'all. So if you can be patient, it's all for a good reason.
Yeah, this episode will be coming out in August, and so that's why I asked if it was like coming out at the same time, but it's okay. By the time this episode is out, people will be they'll be able to prepare. They'll be able to go to the website, put in the email address, tell their friends, spread the word, do all of the amazing things.
Amen and amen to that.
So this is slightly unrelated, but a couple months ago, I was having a conversation with someone, and I had said to myself, because I'm not going to bring up the title of the film, but the description will kind of give away what I'm talking about. But there is a film about a documentary about Zimbabwe that went to Sundance that has been doing really well, and the people behind it are European. And I've been feeling some type of way about that. And so I had this conversation with someone. I was like, why is it these things keep happening? I'm like, cool, on the one side, you know, stories are being told, but it's like, why can't the people who the stories are about tell these stories?
Tell their own stories.
Yeah. And then I got this hit, and I'm like, yo, how has no one done a documentary about, or like a documentary or a biopic about the life of Oliver Mtukudzi? I feel like that would be so powerful, and it would do so well around the world, and would help us, you know, get that recognition on those global stages that we want.
Absolutely.
And the guy brought up to me, yes, awesome. There had been ideas floating around about that, but the issue is, once he died, there was this whole thing about his estate and who do the rights belong to, and do they belong to the wife or to the child, and to the this and all of that and all of this stuff. And I was like, I literally had no clue. And he was like, because living in America can be such a bubble for me. So I literally don't know anything else happening outside of arts. Guilty. But he had said at the time there was like this huge blow up in the local newspapers about it. And then I asked my mom about it, and then she was explaining the situation to me. And I'm like, that is absolutely awful, because just because certain things weren't set out in a will properly, the world might never see, you know, the life of this man or a documentary, because then, you know, we're dealing with, you know, who owns the rights, where does the music belong, and all of that. And so I love that with M.O.T.I, we'll be able to prevent situations like that happening.
Yes.
And I also I went through a deep dive of your Instagram. I'm not a stalker. I'm a detective.
There's a difference.
I do my work. Yes, there's a difference. And I was years old when I discovered an artist by the name of Linda Solomon, who I'd never heard of. And this idea, like the story of the song, is it Mbube? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, and how that links to, and sorry to all the fellow Disney babies, we're about to kill some childhoods, but I like how it links to what we now know as The Lion Sleeps Tonight. Do you want to chit chat about that? Because I had no clue. I was like doing the deep dive, and I freaked out.
Oh yeah, it's sad. It actually is it's a very sad story, and
it's heartbreaking.
I only learned about this in 2019. So I mean, even for me, the fact that I was so surprised when I heard about it. But anyway, let's get into it. So there was a gentleman by the name of Linda Solomon, and he was the original songwriter of a song we know as Mbube. And Mbube, and I think it was at the evening, I always forget, the Midnight Stars. He had his choir troupe, or the Midnight Stars, or anyway, but just.
It's okay. I'm going to link to that BBC article that mentions you in the show notes, and other articles, so that people can deep dive.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. So basically they created this song, which then, well, at the time, and we're talking in 1938. In 1938, then, I guess shortly after, somehow Mbube made its way to America. And I can't remember who the actual American artists and the groups were. However, that's when, because and basically the song was taken, and so there's a bit of controversy with regards to how did Solomon Linda sign away a song when he was illiterate. And this is all, by the way, this is all available on Netflix. There's a show called The Lion's Share. And for me, I found it heartbreaking, but it's a show that just really explains this entire thing in quite detail. It features his family, his daughters are in it. And yeah, but anyway, I'll just explain quickly. So unfortunately what happened is that this song goes to America and it starts to transform. People are sampling it. It transforms from Mbube to Owimbowe because I guess they didn't understand what Mbube meant or what it was. To them, it was just a noise. So they just continued Owimbowe. And that's how, again, Owimbowe, The Lion Sleeps Tonight began. And then it turns into the song, which is The Lion Sleeps Tonight. And and that song has done globally, it's done tremendously thanks to properties such as The Lion King, and I think, well, last I heard, that song has generated like over $60 million. But now,
it's Disney, yeah.
It's Disney money, yo. That's the levels.
It's a huge corporation, yeah.
100%. So the sad thing now is that throughout this, and the way copyright works, is music is really, that's why I say music is an asset. So we need to look at it differently. When I say there's copyright is an asset within music that you can own. And just like any asset, if you pass on, you can pass that asset on to your children and your children's. And that obviously depends on the life, wherever you stay. It depends on the life of copyright. But it's like you can pass it on as an asset where your children can then benefit off it and the like. However, because things were not done correctly with Solomon Linda, it left his family. Number one, he passed away, I believe, in 1967 or 68. I think due to some kidney issues and the like. And he passed away, and I think they also said he had like 107 rand in his pocket. And that's how also his family were left in poverty still, and yet this song, as shared, has made, and what should have been passed on to his children, and as you mentioned earlier, to the estates or whoever the trust is, what ended up happening is that they never were compensated. And so basically the family at some point, I think they got clued up, and someone clued them up, and they understood what was happening and how they weren't being compensated, and basically how they were being robbed, how they had been robbed. And so at the time, as you'll see in the documentary, they got some lawyers, which I personally also feel, at some time in the documentary, they seemed like the knights in shining armor. But then as the money's just they did, I believe what they did was very clever in terms, because I think people were trying to reach out to Disney. However, Disney was just swatting them away kind of vibe. They're not even listening until what these lawyers did. They froze Disney's assets in South Africa. So now Disney couldn't utilize their own assets. So Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, they managed to freeze all these assets, and that's how they got Disney's attention. And that's when now Disney came to the table. However, now what happened, or to my understanding, is that NDAs had to be signed, a non-disclosure agreement. So saying basically that whatever happens here cannot be shared. And there was an instruction that a trust had to be developed. So I think these group of people, the lawyers, they selected whoever they chose to be in the trust, and the family were now excluded from this. Like, from my understanding, the family no one in the family was a part of the trust. No one of the family knew how I had access to some of the information. So they don't even know how much money Disney sent, for example. That was never shared with them. And if you watch the documentary, they talk about how it seemed like these guys were giving them an allowance now. It's like, and the family, it's like, it was just weird. And yeah, the Knights in Shining Army weren't as chivalrous as we thought.
My friends, I hope you enjoyed part 1, but before you go ahead and click play on part 2, please, please, please go ahead, click that subscribe button, rate, review, and once you're done, meet me back for part 2.